Get this all going. Hi guys. Sorry, I'm just plugging my guitar in. It'll be a useful start. Get off to a professional start here. Hope everyone's doing all right. Be nice if we can get some people joining us today. Oh, my throat's a bit ropey actually today. And last thing is plug this in, and we'll talk about the 251. Hello, two viewers. Sorry about the shaky camera. I've just forgotten to plug the charger in. There we go. Brilliant. Okay, so 251s. First of all, before we can talk about how to play over 251s, we need to know what 251 is. We need to define the 251. And so a 251 is obviously when you're in a key, you need to know what chord number 2 is, what chord number 5 is, and what chord number 1 is. Well, the chord number 1 should be obvious because that's the key you're in. However, it's not necessarily quite as simple as that. So the first thing we need to do is number every single chord through the chosen key scale. Now, rather than me sitting here and doing all of that for you, which would just take hours and hours and hours, I'm just going to basically summarize the main categories of 251 and then tell you how to play over them. So in order to be a successful jazz player, as lovely as it is to know your altered modes and your blues scales and your diminished scales and all this sort of stuff, really you can have a very successful jazz career just playing the major scale and the harmonic minor scale, 2 scales you need to know. Now, anything else might be better suited to a scenario, but those 2 scales will always cut the mustard. They'll always do the job. Now, you're going to find that when you go through reading books, articles, YouTube videos, this sort of thing, you get the impression that, oh, I obviously need to know all these modes. I obviously need to know all these complicated scales. I obviously don't know enough. When what I generally find is people get overwhelmed by all that knowledge, and with my students I actually force them to go back to basics, and I do this with myself as well and say, well, how well do I really know the major scale? How much jazz can I actually get from the major scale? The main confusion, I think, regarding which scale plays over which chords is that if you Google that question, you can actually find an answer. Now, the problem with that is it's context dependent. So if you Google which scale should I play over a D minor 7 chord, it will probably say D Dorian. Now, that's not necessarily true. Over a D minor 7 chord, you might actually, in that particular piece of music, you might need the D Phrygian, or you might need the D Aeolian, or you might need a blues scale, you might need all manner of other things. It depends on the piece of music. So Google can't tell you which scale works over which chord. What you need to understand is the context which those chords live in. So anyway, that's a very brief introduction, but let's quickly talk over well, there's 4 main types of 251, so let's look at them. So the first type of 251, which is the most important, the one you're going to see the most, this is, let's get some sound. There we go. I've been avoiding playing the guitar all week because I had to play the bass last night. So my hand, I didn't want it to forget the adjustments for the bass fret. So if I keep playing wide intervals, you'll understand why. So a major 251 is a minor 7 chord. So in this case, I'm doing it in G. A minor 7, I should say. I'll try and be really clear. To a D7. To a G major 7. Now, what differentiates each type of 251 is the tonality of each chord, the type of each chord. So to be specifically in a major scale key, you need to have a minor 7 chord built on number 2, which is A in this case. You need to then have a 7 chord, a dominant 7 chord built on number 5, which is D in this case. And then you have a major 7 chord built on number 1, which is G. Let's do the same in the key of C major. So I've just said you need 2 built on. Sorry, you need a minor 7 chord built on 2. Well, if we're in C, then C, D is 2, E, F, G is 5. So we've got D, G, and C are the notes. On the 2, we need a minor 7, so D minor 7. On the 5, which is G, we need a dominant 7. And on the 1, which is C, we need a major 7. Okay, I'm aware that there's a bit too much light there. Let me just move everything a bit here out the light. I'll put this down as well. Oh, there we go. Major 7. So a major 2-5-1, whenever you see that, you are in the major scale. Okay, that means you need to know your major scales in all 12 keys. Okay, great thing about the guitar is it's basically a transposing instrument in that you an automatically transposing instrument that you just take the same shape and move it to whichever position you need it in. So if you haven't really mastered your major scale and you're spending time trying to learn the diminished scale or the whole tone or the altered, any of this stuff, you're wasting your time, or at least you're not using your time as efficiently as you could. Go back and master the major scale. No matter what you're doing with, and no matter what level you're playing each scale to, you can come up with an exercise that's going to make it tricky. Let me try and pick one. So I think I know my major scales inside out. But let's say I've got to play my major scales. I don't know, a fifth and then and then a fourth above that. No, that would just be an octave. A fifth and then a sixth. That's the interval. I've got to go through each one. No, that's too easy. A fifth and then I'm trying to come up with a tricky example. Okay, a fourth and then a third. Okay, so I would have to think about that. So I obviously am not as confident with the major scale as I thought. And that was a poor example, but I hope you understand what I mean. No matter how well you think you know this scale, you can come up with some sort of exercise that highlights weaknesses within it. Okay, so to summarise, a minor 7 on the 2, a dominant 7 on the 5, a major 7 on the 1. That, if you see that on the page, which is, let's give you an example of that, the first 3 chords of Autumn Leaves. Okay, you got A minor 7, D 7, G major 7. So you know for at least the first 3 chords, you can play the G major scale over the 2 and the 5 and the 1. This is the beauty of 2-5-1s, guys, by the way, I should have already said this, is rather than having to come up with a scale to play on the 2 and then come up with a scale to play on the 5 and then come up with a scale to play on the 1, you group them all together. And you can play one scale to rule them all, yeah? 2, 5, and 1 all become the same scale. So the whole piece of music, if you think of it, every single chord as being your own scale, your brain is over-processing. I'm playing Dorian, now Mixed Lydian, now Ionian, now Lydian. Those would be the first 4 bars of Autumn Leaves. Now, the beauty of summarising and categorising by numbers is you think, well, it's 2, 5, 1, and then 4. They're all just G major. So you're just thinking G major, G major, G major, G major. So much easier to process. Okay, so the second most common type of 2-5-1 is the minor 2-5-1. So what are the characteristics of a minor 2-5-1? Well, a minor 2-5-1 is really easy to spot because you get weird looking chords, or at least if you're new to jazz, these look slightly less familiar, which is a minor 7 flat 5. I'm doing one in the key of D here. So that's E minor 7 flat 5. You then get the 7 flat 9 chord, which in this case, again in the key of D, that's going to be an A7 flat 9. And then you get 1, which technically, if I'm telling you that this is the harmonic minor scale, which it is, you want to use the harmonic minor scale over this, technically it should be a minor major 7, but in practice we just have a minor 7 as the 1 chord, so it would be E half diminished, A7 flat 9, D minor 7, or D minor major 7, which is the sort of the bond chord, yeah. So for the minor 2-5-1, you use the harmonic minor scale. So again, if you're not confident with your harmonic minor scale, get confident with your harmonic minor scale, okay? A clear way to, or the clearest way to think of the harmonic minor scale is, first of all, master your major scale, then you flatten the third of your major scale, and you flatten the sixth of your major scale. Now, if you don't know what the third and the sixth are in the first place because you're not confident with your major scale, you're going to find flattening them very difficult. If you do more major scale practice and get very confident with your third and your sixth, and I say to you, just flatten those, you'll feel confident knowing what that is, and you'll accidentally play the harmonic minor scale. But again, if your major scale's not confident, it's not going to happen, okay? Okay, now what's the next one? Well, the next main type, is the dominant 2-5-1, okay? Which does what it says on the tin. So let's go back to D. A dominant 2-5-1, every chord is a 7 chord, a dominant chord. So you get a D7, G7, C7. Let's turn that delay off. Which is a very familiar sound. It's that sort of turnaround sound in a ukulele song. Okay, every chord is dominant. So how do you play over that? Well, this one is a little bit more complicated if you want to do it theoretically correctly. Now, you don't have to do it theoretically correctly, of course. As we know in music, breaking the rules can sometimes sound pretty cool. But what we're trying to do here is make things simpler. So what you really want to do over that is just play the one key mixolydian. What's going to sound the best is if you can literally go through a mixolydian it's a tongue twister. If you can go through a mixolydian on each one of those chords, so D mixolydian, G mixolydian, C mixolydian. But then we're back to the original problem, okay? We're confused again because it's flying by at a lick, and especially if you're doing the full turnaround and you add an A7 at the end, it's not going to happen. So what you would use for that? Well, it would be you're probably in pentatonic territory there if you're a starting player and you're a bit confused about what to do. You'd play your C blues scale or your C major pentatonic, and you'd get it to work, okay? You get it to work. And well, I said there's 4 types of 2-5-1. The fourth type of 2-5-1 could be anything. It could be any hybrid of the first two. So you could get a D7 to a G7 flat 9 going to a major 7, okay? So that's a combination of all three. More commonly, though, the one that you'll see quite a lot is you'll get a minor 2-5 and then often a major 1, or it'll actually change key. A good example of that, let me give you, I like to try and give real-world examples so you can see the application for this. First 3 chords of Stella by Starlight. You start on E minor 7 flat 5 to an A7 flat 9. So you're thinking, oh great, well I'm in D minor territory here. But then the next chord you get is, okay, well that's C minor. The beauty about 2-5-1, guys, is that this is if you're composing music, if you're writing music yourself, play a 2-5 and you can actually get away with any one you like, any number 1 you like, okay? So you can play a 2-5, okay? Some of them are going to work better than others, and also it depends on the melody you put over the top. Okay, so you don't actually have to play the correct one. We call those an interrupted 2-5-1, where you don't get the one you expect. Okay, so let's look at a few real-world examples, like I say. So I'm going to recap the 2 I've already talked about, which were Autumn Leaves and Stella. And let me just explain these in a bit more detail, and then I'll maybe come up with a few other examples as well. So the first 3 chords of Autumn Leaves are A minor 7. If you've got the chart handy, it might be useful having a quick look. But it's A minor 7, it's D7, and then it's G major 7. Okay? So what we've got here, forget the letters for a second, we've got a minor 7 followed by a dominant, followed by a major 7. So that's a telltale sign that we're probably on a 2-5-1 here. And then when we look at the numbers for each note, if we say, okay, well, I think it's probably a 2-5-1, so that G will be 1. What was the first chord? Oh, well, it was A, so yeah, that would be 2. What was that second chord? It was a D, G, A, B, C, D. G, A, B, C, D. Oh, yeah, that's 5. G. So I know that I can play G major over all 3 of those chords. Let's carry on through the song. The next chord is a C major 7. It's normally got a sharp 11 in it, but it doesn't have to. Well, is C major 7 in our scale in G? G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B. Yes, we've got all the notes of C major 7 there. So guess what? We can keep using our G scale, G major, over Autumn Leaves' first 4 chords. Well, now we get a weird chord. This is strange. A minor 7 flat 5. What's that? That looks very weird. Well, I don't know anything about minor 7 flat 5s. Wait, yes I do. I know a minor 7 flat 5 is probably an indicator of a minor 2-5-1. So, okay, if that's an F sharp, sorry, it's a bit light there, isn't it? There you go. F sharp minor 7 flat 5. So if F sharp is 2, then E would be 1. Well, where do we go here? We've got 2. We then go to B7 with a flat 9, sometimes a sharp 9, depending on the copy you're looking at. B7, well, if I'm E is 1, E, F, G, A, B. Ah, it's number 5. Then I get my E minor 7, or just E minor. Well, that means I'm in E harmonic minor for the last 3 chords. I'm going to just quickly grab a pick, and I'll tell you what, let's see if I can get a backing track up as well, and then I can demonstrate these scales as we go. Computer's doing a virus check, so it's being slow. Hello viewers. Okay, so let's play through these first 2 bars, these first 8 bars of Autumn Leaves, okay? So we've got A minor 7, D7, G, C. Okay, so there was one example. Hopefully you can hear those chords going by just in my soloing. Remember, that's the secret to good soloing, is you should be able to hear the chords even though no one's playing them. So I'm going to play those again. Okay. Now, from there, we've got F sharp minor 7, B7 flat 9 to E minor. Hello viewers. F sharp minor 7, B7 of some sort, up to you, E minor. So this is where we've got our E harmonic ideas. So there's 2 little phrases on that minor 7. So that was just a harmonic minor 2-5-1. So now I'm going to put them back to back. So we've got our G major for 4 chords, and then we've got E minor or E harmonic minor for another 4 bars. Let's see what that's going to sound like. And again, hopefully you can hear the chords go by as I play. 1, 2, 3, 4. Back at the beginning, G major. Okay, so that's the first 8 bars of Autumn Leaves, for example. So it's a major 2-5-1 followed by a minor 2-5-1. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's look at the. In fact, let's go to a slightly simpler example before we go straight into Stella. Fly Me to the Moon, okay? So depends on what key you want to do this one in. We'll stay in the same key just because it's just for convenience. In fact, no, it's normally in. Yeah, stay in the same key. So we've got. Okay. I've got backing tracks now. What was I doing? Fly Me to the Moon. Okay, so Fly Me to the Moon. I've got A minor 7 to D minor 7 to G7 to C major 7. Okay, that's the first line. So we need to work out what's going on here. Well, we've got a major 7. Now, this is a useful chord because we can assume the major 7 is either a 1 or a 4, and that's it. Why? Well, because if you go back to your major scale harmony, you've got a major 7 on the 1, a minor 7 on the 2 and the 3, a major 7 on the 4, dominant 7 on the 5, a minor 7, and a half diminished on the 6 and the 7. So you don't need to remember that, don't worry. It's useful if you do, though, useful if you study that. So two really useful chords for us to look out for. One is the just straight 7, a dominant 7 chord, because that only lives in one place in the scale, which is the 5. You don't get a 7 chord on any other degree, with the exception of the dominant 2-5-1. Okay, so you've always got to do a little bit of work out. It's never just plain as day. But we've got this G7 here, A minor 7, D minor 7, G7, and C7. So I think I'm sure you can sort of see where we're going here. But let's work backwards. So let's say that the G7 was a 5. We don't know if it is yet, but let's say it is. Well, where's a 5 going to take us? Hopefully to a 1. So if G is 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, G, F, E, D, C, we would want it to take us to a C, and it does. Okay, so we know we've got a 5-1. Now working backwards again, we've got D minor 7 just before the G7. Well, if C is 1, D is 2, and it's a minor 7. So we know that we've got here, we've got a 2-5-1 in C major. Okay, so just these 3 chords are going to be D minor 7, G7, C major 7. So this is a 2-5-1 in the key of C, so I'm going to try soloing and still getting those changes. D minor, G7, C, D minor, G, C major 7. You notice something I'm doing when I'm really trying to outline the changes is play lots of arpeggio ideas. Now, arpeggios are great because they are literally the notes of the chord. So if you're struggling to suggest certain, if you're struggling to suggest certain chords to the listener, something I keep saying is, a good solo, regardless of whether a backing track is present, you should be able to have a good guess at least what the chords are. If you've got a musician listening to you, they should be able to figure out a sensible, a roughly appropriate chord diagram. And outlining the harmony with arpeggios is a great way of doing that. Okay, and then all we do, we've got one spare chord here, which is an A minor 7 beforehand. And we just have to ask ourselves, well, is that in the key as well? And A would be the 6th degree of the scale. And we do know, and you're able to find this stuff on Google as well, we know that on the 6th degree of a major scale, we have a minor 7 chord. So the whole of the first line of this, we can play C major as a scale. All we do is we play it in an A way, i.e. outlining the notes of the A minor arpeggio, which are A, C, E, and G. All that changes is the priority of the notes, guys. This is all a mode is, so technically you could say, well, you go Aeolian, A Aeolian, to D Dorian, to G Mixolydian, to C Ionian. But that's too confusing. Why not just say, well, you play C major for all of them, but you just change the emphasis on each one of them. So you're going to play C major in an A way. Well, that might be something like an A minor arpeggio. Then you play in a D minor way. You could play a similar phrase. So I'm just playing D minor, which would technically be Dorian ideas. And then I'm going to play G ideas using only the notes of C. And then I've accidentally resolved onto C there, but you get the idea where you then just play straight C major. I'm occasionally putting in chromaticisms, guys, which is naughty when I'm just talking about major scales. That's just force of habit. But you get the idea. You are able to just play the major scale. If you're a piano player, this is even easier because on the guitar is quite a visually confusing instrument. It doesn't really make sense. You assume that going one way and the other is going to be like higher and lower notes, but as we know, it doesn't always work that way. The piano is great though, because all you can do is you can practice your 2-5-1s and say, well, I'm only allowed to use the white notes because those are C major. So you know that I'm just using the white notes, but I'm using them now in a D way. Okay, running through D to D, for example. Now, same white notes, but I've got to play them in an A sounding way. I've got to play them in a G sounding way. I've got to play them in a C sounding way, so that a listener would think that's an A minor chord. If you just go... In fact, let's hear it. Look, here's the backing track. I'll make this as loud as possible. I'm just going to play just C major, but in a C way over all 4 chords. So this is A minor 7, D minor 7, and G 7, and C major 7. This is going to sound wrong. Okay, so there's no clashes. It doesn't sound bad, but it just doesn't outline the harmony. If you just listen to this without the backing track, you wouldn't know what chords those were. Okay, so now if I play over the same backing track, but I play with thinking about trying to play those same notes, but in an A way, a D way, a G way, and a C way. We'll do that again because I had a little bit of a botched note, but hopefully you could hear that line was a lot more interesting. Okay, so far more interesting idea. So that's a major 2-5-1 again. So later in this tune, it's very similar, by the way, to Autumn Leaves, Fly Me to the Moon. So they're good ones to learn next to each other. Next up, we've got an F major 7. So it's another major 7. Well, we know major 7s are most commonly either on the 1 or the 4. So we're wanting to stay in C major. We're desperate to stay in C major because we want as many chords as possible to share a scale, because that just makes life easy. So when we're playing F major 7, is that the 4 of our current key? Well, our current key is C, D, E, F. Yes, get in. We can stay on C major for F as well. Then things go a bit downhill, but let's add that 4th chord in. That 5th chord. So currently we've got A minor 7, which is the 6, D minor 7, G7, C major 7, F major 7. Okay, so let's try those 5 scales. There's 5 chords, 1 scale over 5 chords. Oh, I've just woken up, believe it or not. It's 12:30. We had a late night and we've had a lovely lie-in today. A minor, D minor, G7, C major 7, F. Okay, now we're into a very strange looking chord. I wonder what this could be. This is a B minor 7 flat 5. What? Or a B half diminished is another way you might name this chord. Well, I have no idea what to do with one of those. Yes I do. It must be, or it could be I should say, because it's not always, but it could be this minor 251 that I've heard Charles Harrison Music and talking about in his live stream about 251s. So this minor 7 flat 5, let's say that is a 2. Now we don't know for certain, but let's say it was. Well, it's B. So if that was a 2, then we're hoping that we're going to go to a phrase that's going to end on an A minor, because if B is 2, A is 1. Okay, well, which chord are we going to go via? Well, via the 5. So B is 2, B, C, D, E. So we're hoping we've got some sort of E7. Might have a flat 9 in it, might have a sharp 9, something along those lines. And what have we got next? E7 flat 9. Who knew? Going to A minor. Okay, so we've got a minor 251. So we're going to be playing A harmonic minor, which is the relative minor of C major. Google it if you're not sure what that means. Have a little Google, relative minor. So this whole phrase has now become 2 scales. It's 8 bars, it's 8 chords, and 2 scales. Now that's so much easier than thinking. I'll tell you what you could think. This is what you would be thinking. I'm going to play it and I'm going to think out loud and tell you all the modal names, and then I'm going to play it again and just tell you the scale names. A Aeolian, D Dorian, G Mixolydian, C Ionian, into F Lydian, into E Phrygian dominant, A Aeolian. Okay, that's confusing. I had a brain fog there. Second mode of the harmonic minor, no idea what it's called. It would be a Dorian flat 9 flat. Oh, it's a Locrian raised 5. But you see, no one knows the names for these. So I'm going to do it again and I'll just tell you what I'm thinking. C major. A harmonic minor. There you go. It's all been condensed into 2 scales rather than all that nonsense before. Hopefully that makes a bit of sense. So that's the first 5 bars, first 8 bars of that. Last one I'll do today, because I'm starting to blabber on here. We're nearly on 35 minutes. Where does time go? Does your time go quickly when you're practicing as well, guys? Do you find when you're playing that your time just flies by? Honestly, I have nothing else that I could do in 35 minutes that feels as quick as talking about music. Stella, let's do it. Stella. Now, I'll not do any examples of the dominants because, like I say, they're actually quite complicated to play properly. But you'll see some of them in tunes like I've Got Rhythm, those sort of more ragtimey tunes, and of course any of the I Got Rhythm like Olio and all those same rhythm changes tunes. Also, in a 12-bar blues context, you can start using dominant 251s because, of course, the whole point of a 12-bar blues is the whole thing's dominant. So it works really nicely. Anything that's a little bit bluesy, ragtimey sort of thing. Stella by Starlight. So we start on an E minor 7 flat 5. Well, what's that probably an indicator of? You guessed it. So if E is 2, D would be 1. So we're hoping that we're going to a D minor chord via a 5. Well, if D is 1, hello viewer, D is 1, E is 2, F, G, A. We've probably got some sort of A7 chord, maybe with something happening with the 9. Well, what's the page say? It says E minor 7 flat 9 to an A7 flat 9 in this case. Well, that's exactly what we want. And we hope we're going to a D minor. Well, we don't actually get the D minor in this case. This is like a little cock tease. We're thinking that you're going to D minor and you're not. But anyway, for the 2 and the 5, you can assume you are. Yeah. So what you actually get is like this interrupted cadence where we end up on a C minor 7 to an F7, which is another interrupted 2-5-1. Stella is full of these. You think you're going somewhere and then it doesn't happen. So we think we're going to D minor at the beginning. That's what we think is happening, but what happens is C minor 7, and then C minor 7 to F7. We think we're going to B flat. That never happens either. We think we're going, but we get, and then this. That's our first 2-5-1. F minor 7 to B flat 7 to E flat major 7. Get to use E flat major over that one, which is a lovely moment. It doesn't last long though. So we're changing key all the time in this one. Now, the bit I want to look at for this one is the ending, okay, the last 8 bars. So if you've got Stella with you there, I'm not talking about the tinnies. If you've got the tune with you, have a little look at the last 8 bars. So we've got E minor 7 to A7 flat 9. Then we expect to get a D chord of some sort, which we do get, but it's a minor 7 flat 5. Okay, so that D chord is instantly another 2. And it goes D minor 7 flat 5 to G7 flat 9. You want to get a C major? C minor, you don't, you get a minor 7 flat 5. So that's become the 2 to a F7 flat 9. Then that's a hybrid one because you get a major B flat. You'd expect a C minor 7 flat 5, F7 flat 9 to a B flat minor. We get B flat major, so that's like a hybrid one. So playing through these changes, you need to play the 2 and the 5 of one key, and then when you get to what you think is going to be the 1, you've got to remember that's actually the 2. So let's talk through the scales here. E to E minor 7 to A7 flat 9, that's going to be D harmonic minor. Okay, when you get to the 1 though, you've got to suddenly go into C harmonic minor. When you get to that 1, you've got to go suddenly into B flat harmonic minor. And when you get to that 1, you've got to be back to B flat major. So really slowly, I'll play over those. Now, can I dive straight in on a chord on iReal Pro? Maybe. Yes, I can. Okay, so I'm going to dive straight in on those last 4 bars. D harmonic minor, C harmonic minor, B flat harmonic minor, into B flat major. Okay, now without the backing tracks, hopefully you can hear the chorus. So D harmonic minor, C harmonic minor, B flat harmonic minor, B flat major. I mucked that up, sorry. Try that one again. Okay, so D harmonic minor, talking and playing. C harmonic minor, B flat, B flat major. nice thing about this phrase is that it is a sequence, i.e. it's the same thing just going down one by a step. So whatever you play on the first phrase, you could just repeat through. Okay, anyway, you get the idea. So those are just my thoughts on 251. So I just want to very briefly summarise. If you've made it through 40 minutes, well done. 4 types of 251. You've got your major 251, which is the major scale built on whatever 1 is. You get a minor 7, followed by a dominant 7, followed by a major 7. Second type of 251 is the minor 251. The telltale sign is the minor 7 flat 5 chord, which you might call a half diminished chord. So if you see that chord, probably 99 times out of 100, it's a minor 251. You'll find some scenarios where it's more modal and it won't be, but you get the minor 7 flat 5, followed by a dominant chord, probably with an alteration to its ninth, normally flattened, sometimes sharpened, and you get a minor 7 1. Finally, the dominant, a dominant 7 on the 2, a dominant 7 on the 5, and a dominant 7 on the 1, which is a really bluesy, ragtimey sound, and any hybrid of those, okay, which includes interrupted ones. So hopefully you found that useful, guys. The whole point of this is that you free your brain up. If you think, how on earth are people playing all this stuff? How are they, thinking about all these scales and playing something musical at the same time? It's because they're not thinking about all these scales. Now, in the occasional tune, you do have to, especially more modal tunes, you do have to think of all the scales as they go by. But generally, in more traditional sounding jazz stuff, all the standards really, you can massively summarize the chords into family scales rather than thinking of every single chord as a mode. If you're still confused by playing over standards and you're wasting your time practicing modes and practicing altereds and whole tones and diminished, I call these flavor scales because they're nice to have, they're nice to add to your meal, but you need to have the meal there in the first place, and the meal is the major and the harmonic minor. Okay, you need those. Everything else you can get by without them. You can't get by with just the flavor scales. Okay, or you could probably get by, but you'd be a very strange sounding player. So master your major scale inside and out, then flatten the third and the sixth of it, and you've suddenly got a harmonic minor scale. If you master those two, all the others you'll learn them in a second. Look, the melodic minor, you just flatten the third of the major scale. Well, if you don't know that major scale well enough, you can't flatten the third. It's too confusing. Hopefully you get the idea. So hopefully you found that useful, guys. Any questions, leave them down below, and I'll see you in the next live one. So have a good weekend. It's Saturday here. Well, it's probably Saturday everywhere, I'd imagine. Enjoy your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Enjoy your practice.